Hey guys, so Astarion's Book of Hungers came out today. It is a new like $15 vampire themed Forgotten Realms expansion. You also would have gotten this if you bought the Heroes of Faerun bundle. It has 3 backgrounds, the Dhampir species, 3 Origin Feats to go with those backgrounds, 10 General Feats, and 3 Epic Boon Feats. So pretty good amount of content for just a little packet, basically. I feel like they obviously added this because of the popularity of Astarion in Baldur's Gate 3, but I find it curious because I'm almost 100% sure that they're going to be coming out with a Ravenloft book very early in 2026. Not only have we gotten many horror-themed subclasses in playtests for the past year, but there's also this clip from one of Ed Greenwood's Baldur's Gate 3 streams that I was watching during the summer. Check it out.
To answer Smiling Knight, who's the most powerful boss in 5e D&D? You haven't seen all of 5e yet. Wait, there's a Ravenloft book coming out? There's 2 Realms books? Hang in there.
So yeah, I feel like we're gonna get a little bit more vampire stuff not too far in the future. Before I get too deep into this Book of Hungers though, hi, I'm Warners. I make D&D content on this YouTube channel, but I also come out with a 2024 rules compatible subclass every month on my Patreon. This month I came out with the Inquisitor Rogue. It's a 1/3 caster rogue akin to the Arcane Trickster, but instead of using the wizard spell list, it uses the cleric spell list. I also give it access to Divine Favor for its level 3 feature, and then it has some very exciting features as you go further in levels. So if that sounds interesting to you, go ahead and check the link down below. With that out of the way, let's get into it. So we got this amazing art. I love the art in this little packet, and we're going to start with our backgrounds. So we have Carouser. You can pick ability scores Dexterity, Intelligence, or Charisma. The origin feat with this is Tireless Reveler, which we'll go over in a second. Skill proficiencies is Deception and Persuasion. You get a tool proficiency of any kind of gaming set. For equipment, you can either get 50 gold or you can get a dagger, a gaming set, matching your tool proficiency. Fine clothes, glass bottle, mirror, perfume, pouch, and tinderbox, and 19 gold. You grew to adulthood in the beating heart of a large city, such as Baldur's Gate. So right there, they're kind of admitting that this is not Forgotten Realms specific, so that's kind of nice. You spent countless evenings in taverns, playhouses, parlors, and gambling dens, savoring all the city had to offer. You're a natural at interacting with people to learn their secrets, whether over a high-stakes game or at a high-class soiree. Sorry, I'm not fancy enough to know how to pronounce that. You might have been thrown out of an establishment or 10, but only by people who don't know how to party. That's a nice little background. And we got the Vampire Devotee background. You get to choose ability scores between Strength, Constitution, or Charisma. Your feat is Vampire's Plaything. Interesting. Skill proficiencies are Persuasion and Stealth. You get Cook's Utensils proficiency, and you can choose equipment between 50 gold or Cook's Utensils, Fine Clothes, 2 glass bottles, Healer's Kit, Perfume, Lamp, 3 oil flasks, a water skin, and 19 GP. You were in service to a vampire or a small group of vampires, layering together. The undead drink your blood more times than you can count. You might have served willingly, perhaps with aspirations of one day becoming a vampire yourself, or you might have been magically charmed and retain only a few muddled memories of your time as a vampire familiar. In either case, your time in the vampire den is over. Nice. And then we have Vampire Survivor. Ability scores Dexterity, Constitution, or Wisdom. You get the Vampire Hunter feat, which that sounds very exciting. You get the skill proficiencies of Insight and Religion. You get the Woodcarver's Tool proficiency, which I think makes sense. Kind of like the stake to the heart theme there. Equipment, you can choose 50 gold or Woodcarver's Tools, Crowbar, Hooded Lantern, Holy Symbol, Holy Water, Mirror, 3 oil flask, Tinderbox, Traveler's Clothes, Water Skin, and 4 GP. You witnessed or survived a vampire attack. You might have been directly involved in this confrontation, or perhaps you were frozen in terror by what you saw. Regardless, you remain vigilant for monster attacks and pride yourself on being ready for anything. No vampire will catch you or your allies by surprise again. This is kind of like every Demon Slayer from the Demon Slayer anime's origin story. Makes sense. And then before we get into the feats, we have the updated Dhampir. The Dhampir was last seen in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, I'm pretty sure. But you're a humanoid, size medium or small, chosen when you select this species. That's nice. Your speed is 35 feet. As a Dhampir, you have these special traits. Dark vision, you have dark vision with a range of 60 feet. Spider climb, you have a climb speed equal to your speed. And when you reach character level 3, you can move up, down, and across vertical surfaces and along ceilings while leaving your hands free, which I think that'll be a lot of fun. I think it'd be fun to be a spellcaster or a ranger and just shooting arrows from on top of the wall or ceiling. That sounds really fun. And then we got Trace of Undeath. You have resistance to necrotic damage. Nice, nice, nice. I think that's pretty new. And then we have Vampiric Bite. When you use your unarmed strike and deal damage, you can choose to bite with your fangs. You deal piercing damage equal to 1d4 plus your constitution modifier instead of the normal damage of an unarmed strike. Okay. In addition, when you deal this damage to a creature that isn't a construct or undead, you can empower yourself in one of the following ways. Drain, you regain hit points equal to the piercing damage dealt. Strengthen, you gain a bonus to the next ability check or attack roll you make within the next minute. The bonus is equal to the piercing damage dealt. You can empower yourself with this trait a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. The Vampire Bite, I feel like, is not amazing, but it's also not bad, especially if you're like a monk. You could give yourself a bonus to your ability check or attack roll equal to probably around 5, I would say, because your constitution is probably around 3 and 1d4 is 2.5 on average, so like 5, 6, maybe if you really stack constitution, 7. That could be pretty decent bonus. And also, if you're in a really desperate situation or you're lower level, the drain ability, you could heal a decent amount of hit points, so that's kind of nice. It also doesn't say once per turn, it's just limited to how many unarmed strikes you can do and also your proficiency bonus. So if you want, let's say you're a monk and let's say you're a high enough level that you can do 5 punches and your proficiency bonus is high enough to have 5 uses, you could do 5 bites and you could heal yourself 1d4 plus your constitution modifier 5 times. That could be kind of cool. Lovely Dhampir art. And then let's go ahead and go over the feats, starting with the Origin Feats, of course. So we have the Tireless Reveler feat. When an ally you can see within 60 feet of yourself expends heroic inspiration, you can gain heroic inspiration if you lack it. You can use this benefit a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a short or long rest. That's super fun to have. And one thing to remember, if you're a warlock, this can be an invocation for you. So warlocks could really stack up the heroic inspiration Origin Feats that they have added to this game with the new Heroes of Faerun and now this. So I think that's a pretty solid feat. And then we have Vampire Hunter, Adroit Escape. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. You have advantage on checks to escape from non-magical restraints or the grappled condition. Okay, that's a pretty decent little bonus. In Vitality Ward, when you take necrotic damage, you can take a reaction to mitigate the damage. Roll a number of d6s equal to your proficiency bonus and add them together. Reduce the necrotic damage you take by this total. Once you use this benefit, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. D6s equal to proficiency bonus is actually pretty high and it scales well. It's only once per short rest and it is only against necrotic damage, which could be situational, but also undead are a very popular enemy type in a lot of games. And if you're playing in a vampire themed game, then yeah, this will be great. And it is short and long rest, so if you are able to get a decent amount of short rests in, yeah, I think this is a pretty decent Origin feat. And then we have Vampire's Plaything. You gain the following benefits. Decanting. When you finish a long rest, you can create 1 potion of healing or an antitoxin, as long as you have an empty vial or flask. These liquids evaporate when you finish another long rest. I feel like this would be a fun Origin feat to combo with the Artificer Alchemist, so you could just have a bunch of potions. And yeah, getting a potion of healing is a nice little bonus. Timely Retreat. You can take a bonus action to take the dash action or the disengage action. You can use this benefit a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you recover all expended uses when you finish a long rest. Okay, so since it's an Origin feat, it's kind of nice just to have bonus action disengage or dash if you don't have it on your class normally. Again, I could see this being a nice little origin feat to pick up on a warlock. And then we get vampiric connection. The DM determines the fate of your former vampire master. While you and your former vampire master are on the same plane of existence, the vampire can communicate with you telepathically, and you can choose to allow the vampire to perceive through your senses. Ooh, this is a very 2014 coded ability. Wow, I'm kind of surprised they added this to 2024 rules ability. I really like that too. It's very DM dependent and campaign dependent, but that's pretty cool. It does make the origin feat lessons of the first ones feel kind of odd, but you know, I could see a DM being creative with it. Maybe the lessons of the first ones thing that you siphoned off is somehow connected to a vampire and the warlock didn't even know it. So yeah, that's the 3 origin feats. I think they're all pretty decent. Nothing too crazy or amazing, but they are origin feats, so that's important to keep in mind. I think the most bang for your buck and the one that's the most useful in all situations is Vampire's Plaything. Free potion every day and bonus action dash disengage. I can't think of a typical adventuring day where these abilities would not be useful. Okay, now we got some general feats. Very excited for these. So we have Bloodlust. Increase your strength, dexterity, or constitution by 1. Powerful recovery. When you roll hit point die to regain hit points, you can treat any roll of 1 or 2 as a 3. There's a lot more abilities that are being added to the game where you can use hit dice as a resource besides being used for healing. So this could be a way to maximize the hit dice that you have left after using them for other things. That's kind of nice. Sanguine Feast. Once per turn, when you hit a bloodied creature that isn't a construct or undead with an attack roll, you can expend a hit point die, roll it, and regain a number of hit points equal to the number rolled plus your constitution modifier. You can use it your proficiency bonus times per long rest. That could be very fun to put on a Scion of the 3 rogue. You can just find out that a creature is bloodied, reaction, sneak attack them, and then heal yourself a bit. That's kind of fun. And it ups your dexterity, so yeah. But honestly, you're going to be able to use this pretty often because everyone is fighting bloody creatures at some point, and this combos with powerful recovery. So even though you're only using 1 hit point dice, it's going to be at the lowest a 3, and you get to add your constitution modifier to it. So actually, yeah, this is a pretty solid feat. I like this. So I actually read this next one earlier before I started recording, and I am very excited for this feat. It's going to make thrown weapon builds a little more viable. So you increase our dexterity score by 1 to a maximum of 20. We get Far Lobber. When you use the attack action to throw a vial or flask, you can target an object or creature you can see within 40 feet of yourself. So I actually had trouble finding throwing rules, but whatever they are, you now can throw things 40 feet. So that's cool. But then long shots, this is the part that I'm a little more interested in. It says attacking at long range doesn't impose disadvantage on your attack rolls with thrown weapons. That's super sweet. We now have a feat for that if we didn't have it before. So yeah, I like this. Then we have Cloying Mists. This one's also super fun. Comboing this with some sort of blind sight build could be very fun. So you increase your intelligence, wisdom, or charisma score by 1 to a maximum of 20. You always have the Fog Cloud spell prepared. You can cast it without a spell slot, and you must finish a long rest before you can cast it in this way again. You can also cast it using spell slots you have of the appropriate level. Your spell casting ability for the spell is the ability increased by this feat. So we get a free casting of Fog Cloud, and we get Fog Cloud, and we're able to cast Fog Cloud with our spell slots. Grasping Mist. When you cast Fog Cloud, non-magical flames in the spell's sphere are extinguished. Okay, kind of situational, but that's whatever. And creatures other than you and your allies have their speed reduced by 5 feet while in the spell's sphere. Okay, 5 feet reduction is a very small amount, but I will say this is kind of cool. Fog Cloud, I think, is a very underrated spell because stuff like Dark Vision and True Sight doesn't see past it, and it's a first level spell. It's just heavy obscurement, which is a very powerful effect. And let's say you combo this with a party of dwarves. You can just have all the dwarves use Tremor Sense, and you can fight in a fog cloud, and then every enemy's speed is reduced by 5. That could be a fun little party play style with this feat. So yeah, I feel like this feat won't be taken very often, and it is kind of niche, but it's kind of cool. I don't know. It's charming at the very least. And then we have Delicious Pain. I think this one's pretty cool. So we get to increase one ability score of our choice, any ability score. That doesn't happen a lot with General Feats. That's pretty sweet. And then Toughened Flesh. Immediately after you take bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage, you can take a reaction to gain resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage until the start of your next turn. So make sure you notice that you gain resistance to all three, but you only have to take one of those damage types. That's an important distinction. Once you use this benefit, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. I think this is a decent feat. I kind of wish it was proficiency bonus times per long rest, but once per short rest or long rest, that's kind of nice. And you get to choose any ability score, so it's very versatile. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, I don't know how many builds I would actually take this on, but it's definitely a nice addition to the rule set. And then we have Lightbringer. This is cool because it's sort of a anti-vampire feat. This would be a very powerful feat in any undead campaign, especially if you're fighting vampires or shadows or anything that sunlight affects them negatively. So we get to improve our intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. We get Sacred Magic. You learn the light spell and can cast it without material components. If you already know that cantrip, you learn a different cleric cantrip of your choice. The spell's spellcasting ability is the ability increased by this feat. We get Solar
Luminance.
Solar Luminance. When you cast light, you can have the light from the spell be sunlight. Once you use this benefit, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. But let's look at the light spell for context, because that'll help us understand the range or radius, and it will also help us understand how long it lasts. So the duration is an hour, not a concentration cantrip because it's just light. You touch one large or smaller object that isn't being worn or carried by someone else. Until the spell ends, the object sheds bright light in a 20-foot radius and dim light for an additional 20 feet. Here's the question: does the sunlight go out to 40 feet or just 20 feet? I'm kind of curious about that. I assume it would be 40 feet since bright light and dim light are both light, and it just says you can have the light from the spell be sunlight. So yeah, it's 40-foot radius sunlight for an hour. That could be super clutch in any vampire fight, and it's just a cantrip. It's only once per long rest, but if you're fighting vampires and you can do that once per long rest, that's a real nice little ability. Again, if they have Dispel Magic, they can get rid of it, but still, I think this is super solid. And then we get Sun's Healing as a bonus action. While within sunlight, you can expend one of your hit point dice, roll the die, and regain a number of hit points equal to the roll. Once you use this benefit, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. That's kind of nice, not like amazing or anything, but yeah, another way to heal with your hit point dice when it's not a short rest. Okay, so we have the next feat, Love Bites. I feel like this feat could open up a really interesting, charming playstyle. Optimizers, let me know down below if there's anything you can come up with this feat, but I'm very excited to look some stuff up about charming and abilities that work with charming. Anyway, it says that you can increase one ability score of your choice, any ability score. Second time we had one of these. These are kind of nice to have. It says Enduring Pain. Immediately after you damage a creature with a melee weapon or an unarmed strike, you can take a bonus action to give the target the charmed condition. No saving throw. A lot of creatures are immune to charmed, but no saving throw here, so that's cool. Until the start of your next turn or until you or your allies damage it. Once you use this benefit, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. Actually, I think I'm thinking about a feat later on in this packet, but I feel like it would combo well with Love Bites. Yeah, so there's a feat later on in the packet that I think would combo well with Love Bites. It's expensive to take 2 feats for this, but yeah, anyway, let's go to the next feat. We have Putrefy. This is another one of those feats where you can increase any ability score. And then we get Necrosis. When you make a damage roll that deals necrotic damage, you can cause one creature taking that damage to have the poison condition until the start of your next turn. Once you use this benefit, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. This feat would be amazing on a warlock, specifically Pact of the Blade with the Summoned Undead spell, because with Pact of the Blade, you can make all your weapon attacks be necrotic damage. And so you can activate this ability and the target automatically has the poison condition, no saving throw. It's only till the start of your next turn, but the summon undead putrid option makes it so that when that undead hits a poison target, they automatically become paralyzed. And just for my proof, it's right here at the bottom where it says Rotting Claw. If the target has the poison condition, it has the paralyzed condition until the end of its next turn. So yeah, automatic paralysis. That's kind of nice. You would have to use your weapon attack first to poison the target, then have your summon undead hit the target, but then the paralysis lasts until the end of its next turn, and the poison condition only stays until the start of your next turn, but that's okay because the paralyzed condition would take it over, if that makes sense. So yeah, pretty fun combo. I'm definitely going to make a build around that potentially. Okay, and then we have Rebuke, another feat where we can choose any ability score, +1, and we get Radiant Strike. When you make a damage roll that deals radiant damage, you can cause one huge or smaller creature taking the damage to have the prone condition. No saving throw. Once you use this benefit, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. Oh my gosh, paladins would love this. And honestly, with all the other radiant damage feats being added to the game, we got another one. Oh my gosh, so many choices for radiant damage builds. This isn't just great for paladins too, it's also great for true strike builds. There's just so many options. Really like this feat. Here we get Treacherous Allure. This is the one that I was thinking about when comboing with the Love Bites feat. So you increase your intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. You always have the charm person spell. You can cast it once for free, basically. And then you can use your other spell slots to cast it. Spellcasting ability is the one you increase with the feat. But then we get Inevitable Betrayal. You have advantage on attack rolls against creatures with the charm condition. This is just always on, always works, super cool. So yeah, pretty nice little feat. It's honestly not like amazing, but I feel like there could be some build potential here. So yeah. Then we have Vampire Touched. You gain the following benefits. You increase your intelligence, wisdom, or charisma score by 1. We get Vampire Magic. Choose one first level spell from the enchantment or illusion school of magic. Nice. It can just be any spell from one of those schools. And it's Vampire Touch, so this is akin to Fey Touched or Shadow Touched. You always have that spell and the Spider Climb spell prepared. You can cast each of these spells without expending a spell slot, but when you cast Spider Climb this way, you must target yourself, and you must finish a long rest before you can cast each spell in this way again. You can also cast either spell using spell slots you have of the appropriate level. Your spellcasting ability for the spells is the ability increased by this feat. For context, Fey Touched gives you divination or enchantment spells, and Shadow Touched gives you illusion or necromancy spells. So this technically doesn't add any new possible spells you could pick up because we get enchantment from Fey Touch and we get illusion from Shadow Touch, but we do get access to Spider Climb, and that's pretty sweet, especially because it's a transmutation spell and none of the touched feats have transmutation as an option. All right, now we have the Epic Boon Feats. These are feats that people tend to not really care too much about unless they actually play in level 20 games, which I am someone that does. I'm currently almost done with a 5-year campaign and we're currently level 20. The DM says we have about maybe 2 to 3 sessions left and we're currently up to the final fight. We're still using the 2014 rules though for that game. But I digress. Let's go ahead and get into these epic boons. So we have Boon of Blazing Dawn. Very cool name. We can increase 1 ability score, any score, and it raises the maximum to 30. We get Beloved of the Sun. You have immunity to radiant damage. That's pretty cool. I feel like there's some builds you could do with this because there's some AoE radiant damage spells that do have friendly fire, and this could be a way to mitigate that. We have Blazing Strike. When you hit a creature with a weapon attack, the damage can be radiant or the weapon's normal damage type, your choice. That's whatever. And we got Burst of Sunlight. Once per turn, when you hit a creature with an attack that deals radiant damage, you can emit bright light in a 30-foot radius from yourself and dim light for an additional 30 feet until the start of your next turn. This light is sunlight. Okay. Yeah, I feel like this is good for a very specific undead campaign. This would be good in a Curse of Strahd game, but not really that great in a general campaign, in my opinion. Very thematic, though. And we got Boon of Looming Shadows. Increase 1 ability score, any score, increase the maximum to 30. And we got Shadowy Stretch. When you take the attack action, your reach for your melee weapon attacks increases by 10 feet until the end of your turn. Okay, that could be fun for a lot of builds. It does not stack with, for example, the Elemental Monk 10-foot reach because they're not using melee weapons specifically with that ability. It's specifically unarmed strikes. But there is the Path of the World Tree Barbarian, and they get their reach extended by 10 feet. That would stack with this, and you can have a 20-foot extended melee attack range. That's kind of insane. So yeah, that's cool. If you're a Bugbear World Tree Barbarian that took the Boon of Looming Shadows feat, you are basically a ranged melee character, so that's kind of cool. Then we got Dancing Silhouette. You can take the dodge action as a bonus action. Ooh, that's actually really good. I really like that because that requires no resource and you can just always take dodge as a bonus action. There's a reason why it costs a key point for a monk to do this. Dodge is a really nice action to have as a bonus action. I really like this Epic Boon feat. Okay, so we got Boon of Misty Escape. I already kind of understand what's going on here without even reading it. Increase your intelligence, wisdom, or charisma score by 1 to a maximum of 30. Gaseous form. If you drop to 0 hit points but aren't killed outright, you can instead drop to 1 hit point and cast gaseous form without expending a spell slot. No action required. When you cast this spell this way, you can target only yourself. Your fly speed is 20 feet and you regain 10 hit points at the start of each of your turns for the spell's duration. The spell's spellcasting ability is the ability increased by this feat. Once you use this benefit, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. That is super nice, but let me look at the duration of gaseous form because I forgot. 1 hour. So you basically become a vampire with its Misty Escape ability. 10 hit points at the start of each of your turns for an hour. If you get out of combat, you're full health. So yeah. This is a good TPK defense mechanism. You can be the only surviving character, and I like that. That's pretty cool. And then we got this lovely art, a vampire hunter tangles with a vampire. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is a nice little digital packet that they added, and I feel like if you use D&D Beyond often and you make character builds and any of these feats sound interesting, then this packet might be worth it to you. But just know that it just has these character options. There's not a lot else in this packet, so yeah. Remember to check out my Patreon, maybe check out my Inquisitor Rogue subclass, and I'll see you guys later. Peace out.